আমরা বাংলাদেশী। আমরা আমেরিকাতে বড় হয়েছি। আমরা বিদেশী। Hi everyone, welcome to Deshi. আমি দিয়া. As you know, আমাদের শো বাংলাদেশীদের নিয়ে, বাংলা ভাষীদের নিয়ে এবং যারা বাংলাদেশকে ভালোবাসে তাদেরকে নিয়ে. Before I even start the show, I would like to thank all the viewers, every one of you that's watching this show and that wrote emails, a tremendous amount of emails and letters to us. আমি আপনাদেরকে ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি. On top of that, আপনারা অনেকেই সাজেস্ট করেছেন যেন আমরা আপনাদের ইমেল এই প্রোগ্রামে রিড করি. Well, at the end of this show, we have a special segment where we will read your emails and answer any questions or just read any comments that you may have had. Well, let's get back to today's show then. আমাদের আজকের শো একটা খুব স্পেশাল এপিসোড. As you know, in Bideshi, we try to focus on issues that relate to the immigrant Bangladeshi American life here in America. September 11, 2001, the day Twin Tower collapsed. It was a memorable day for everyone living in America, regardless of race, religion, and color. After September 11th, এমন কিছু incident হয়েছে here in America, যেটা especially আমাদের immigrant South Asian as well as Bangladeshi community খুব closely affect করেছে. There were detention, deportation, immigration issues, unnecessary questioning, harassment, and many incidents that was very unfortunate. Today, in our show, we are going to address those topics. আমার সাথে আজকে আছে Monami.
Hi.
Monami is the founder of Drum. Drum is Desi's Rising Up and Moving. They are a non-profit organization that give help to immigrant communities here in America. Then I have Arshid Chowdhury. Hi, Arshid.
Hi, dear.
Arshid is a young entrepreneur, a very successful young businessman, but he also have suffered what is known as the backlash of 9/11. So we'll hear about that later in the show. And then we have Shoshi.
Hi.
Okay, Shoshi is a youth organizer. She works for Drum. Well, as you can tell, audience, we have an amazing show lined up for you. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after the break. Hey, welcome back to Bideshi. You're watching us on STV US. Once again, we're talking about the aftershock of 9/11. September 11, 2001 পরে বাংলাদেশি লাইফ দের ইমিগ্রেন্ট লাইফের কি চেঞ্জ এসেছে তা নিয়ে আজকে আমরা আমাদের শোতে কথা বলবো. First, we are going to hear from Arshid. Arshid, can you please share your story with the audience?
Well, September 11th happened on a Tuesday, and my roommate at the time asked me what my religion was on Wednesday, and he happened to move out on Thursday. So September 11th actually affected me right away.
And your roommate is?
Well, he was a white Christian American, but someone who I thought was open-minded. He was getting a master's degree. And in fact, just to show how little people knew about Islam at the time, he asked me what my religion was, and I responded Islam. And he said, oh, well, good, because Osama bin Laden is Muslim. He thought they were different. So shortly after that, though, a few friends of mine and I were walking through the streets of Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and I'm sorry, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we were chased by a group of teenage guys. We were chased for about 3 blocks, and luckily nothing happened, but they were yelling things like Taliban and Al-Qaeda at us.
So just because of your religion, just because you are a Muslim person, your roommate moved out and you were chased down the streets. Wow. I mean, Monami, would you like to comment on that? Is Arshid's story an isolated event?
No, not at all. Unfortunately, since 9/11, there's been hundreds, if not thousands, of cases of immigrants, especially from Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, and Arab countries who've been harassed in similar ways, who've been deported, put into jail, and then kicked out of the U.S. And we've worked with hundreds of people like that in the last 5 years.
What about you, Shoshi? I mean, do you have any stories?
A lot of the youth, like the next day after 9/11, like people didn't go to school because they were afraid, and even like weeks after, like people are afraid to go to school because every time people have been in school, they'll be called names like, "Go back to your country, you don't belong here, you terrorist, you destroyed our country." And like a lot of the youth have faced so much harassment that they're afraid to go to school, and there was so much fear in the community, which was really bad. But that was like back then 2001, but to this day people are still getting harassed on that day.
So this is like over 4 years now?
Yeah, like recently we just worked on a case of Bangladeshi girl. She was 25 and she was harassed in Astoria, Queens, where she was actually like beaten down by this white woman, saying that you killed my brother because her brother was in 9/11 in the Twin Tower.
So হয়েছে কি যে she was 25-year-old মেয়ে, সে রাস্তায় হাঁটছিল, and I mean
রাস্তায় সে বিপাতে আরেকদিন গান গায় বা শিখে, তো সে গান গাইতে যাচ্ছিল তার ফ্রেন্ডের সাথে, তার ফ্রেন্ড ছিল 15 বছর মনে হয় বা কাজিন, আই এম নট শিওর। সো দেন সে তখন যাচ্ছিল, তখন হঠাৎ করে মহিলা তখন দিনের বেলায় লাইক হয়তো ড্রাঙ্ক ছিল, লাইক সে হচ্ছে বার থেকে বের হয়ে বলতেছিল, তোমরা আমার ভাইকে মেরেছো, তোমরা আমার তোমাদের দোষ, তোমাদের জন্য আমাদের দেশে এরকম হচ্ছে। সো তারপরে ওকে মারা শুরু করলো লাইক ওইখানে, আর এমন অবস্থা যে কেউ ওকে হেল্প করতে আসছিল না তখন, লাইক there was other people there were Bengali people there as well, but no one was coming to help her. No, she was trying to call 911, but for surprisingly, like 3 times she tried to call 911 and it was kept on getting cut off.
911 is the emergency number here, like
where you call the police or in any sorts of help that you want. And so, but later when she was actually like, when the police came after like a couple of hours, like, when she was saying this was a hate crime, police refused to write it as a hate crime because they said like it was just a fight between 2 young women. And he said, if you want to put charges on her, the white lady, like, we're going to arrest you as well. And as a Bengali girl, you don't want to be arrested. That's a bad reputation, as we all know. So she just, forbid the case at then, but then she went to talk with other organizations about fighting back.
That's really. I mean, Rashad, I'm going to come back to you again. Like, there is another story that that really affected you closely, and you even went to American media with it. Would you like to share that story as well?
Sure. I thought that the events of September 11th would lead to only personal harassment, but I didn't know it would be on such a national scale. And I was swept up in what became more of a national debate shortly afterwards when I tried to fly to visit a friend in California. When I was flying back from California, I was stopped before actually entering the plane, and I was at the airport. I was stopped at the airport, and I was called by the airport security and told that the pilot did not want me to fly because my name was suspicious. And shortly afterwards, I was surrounded by police, military, airport security, and the actual airline security itself.
Just because your name sounded suspicious.
And this was only because I had a name that a pilot thought sounded suspicious.
তোমার যেহেতু মুসলমান টাইপের সাউন্ডিং নাম, তার জন্য তোমাকে তারা স্টপ করেছে এয়ারপোর্টে, and because the pilot didn't want to.
Well, in fact, my last name is Chowdhury, and that's quite a common last name, and not just amongst Muslims. So Muslims and Hindus share that last name. So I was quite surprised. But what shocked me was that even after I was proven to be innocent, not a threat, my bags were searched, my background was checked, even after that I was still not allowed to fly.
Why?
Well, apparently my name was then added to a watch list, which is essentially like a list of terrorists. It was added to it by what I suspect is the airline staff, people who worked for the airline, not by the FBI, not by CIA or by any government authorities who are trained in these, but instead just the regular employees of an airline had the ability to add my name to a watch list. Now that was something that I thought was just inappropriate. So from then on I couldn't fly, or every time I tried to fly, my arrival
just because you have a Muslim sounding name, you were just banned from flying altogether. And might I add that you are a very busy businessman.
I was shocked because I was born here in the United States. My mother is a school teacher, and my father is a doctor here. I have 2 brothers who are both educated here, and none of us have any criminal background whatsoever. But what was surprising was that there was no phone number to call when I found out that my name was on a watch list. There was nobody to go to. So I had to actually take matters into my own hands and find the resources out there. And there are some resources out there for us to turn to, places like Drum, who advocate for Bangladeshi Americans and for Muslims in general.
You know, we'll come back to the immigration rights here in America, you know, what kind of rights you may have. But I want to talk more about the injustices that happened just because based on the fact that we are Muslims and not every one of us faced it, but how much do you blame the media for it? Like, how much do you blame the government? Do you think they did their job? Do you think, because I know every time I would hear a news, they won't say, oh, there's a terrorist or attacking here and there. They'll say Muslim terrorists, you know, are attacking. Like, do you think that's the reason it escalated to such a level?
I mean, I think that all these personal incidences, thousands of them, যেখানে লোকেরা হ্যারাস হয়েছে বা এই দেশে থেকে বার করে দেওয়া হয়েছে 3 থেকে 5,000 মানুষকে, মোস্টলি মুসলমান মানুষকে, এটা জাস্ট এমনি হয় না. What you were saying, that it's not just the government is doing it and creating laws, and then it trickles down to the people. And so in an average community, a landlord will call a Homeland Security and report a tenant. So your boss can call and report you if they think you're not doing proper work. So everybody has become suspicious, and the laws of this government have allowed everyday people to blame and scapegoat immigrants, especially Muslim immigrants, as terrorists. And every night on the news we watch Muslim faces as terrorists. So
okay, you know what, Monami, hold that thought. Viewers, we have to take a very short break and we'll be right back. Keep watching your favorite show, Be Deshi. Hi everyone, welcome back. As you know, we were talking about the after effect of 9/11. আমি তোমার কাছে প্রথমে আসছি যে কোয়েশ্চন আমি তোমাকে জিজ্ঞেস করব, যেহেতু you are an organization that actually came forth, তোমরা এগিয়ে এসেছিলে after 9/11 to help everyone. যেমন একটা জিনিস দেখা যায়, যেটা আমি বলতে চাচ্ছি যারা বাংলাদেশে বসে এই অনুষ্ঠান দেখছেন অথবা অন্য স্টেটে বসে দেখছেন, one of the common fears were people that were not legal, like people that did not have any legal rights here in America. They got very scared because there were many different things like special registration, right, and there were detention, deportation. And can you share some stories of that sort?
Sure. I mean, প্রথম কথা হচ্ছে যে এই দেশে there are 14 million people who are undocumented or so-called illegal. That's a lot of people.
14 million.
14 million people with families, many of them
that contribute to the financial.
Absolutely, they're all workers here in this country, and all of them have children and husbands and wives, and many of them have children who are U.S. citizens. Some of the stories that we've seen that are heartbreaking is that when a family member is deported, their whole family is ripped apart. There was a case of a Bangladeshi man who went to the special registration program, which
can you talk for a little about the special registration program?
Sure. In 2002, the U.S. government, the Department of Justice, initiated the special call-in registrations. And basically what it required was men and boys over the age of 16 to go in and register themselves to the U.S. government. And 25 countries were affected. So if you were from one of these 25 countries, you have to go. Majority were Muslim countries, plus North Korea. So Bangladesh was one of the countries. So by a particular date, যারা এখানে বাংলাদেশি পুরুষ ওই বয়সের মধ্যে তাদেরকে রেজিস্টার
18 থেকে 25 16 থেকে 25
So men had to go and register. Many people were afraid that if I don't register, maybe I won't get my citizenship in this country later on. So many people went, but basically it was a trap. Because once you go there, and if you don't have papers here, then you are going to be put into deportation.
You know, this is really funny that you say it was a trap, because it was a trap. অনেকেই কিন্তু জানতো না, তারা ভেবেছে যেভাবে গভর্নমেন্ট এটাকে অ্যাডভার্টাইজ করেছে যে জাস্ট যাও, we're not looking for trouble, we're not going to kick you out of the country, all we're going to do is take your name and address just so you're documented, যে তোমরা ইলিগাল না। কারণ অনেকেই বাংলাদেশের আছে যারা টুরিস্ট ভিসায়, আমাকেও অনেকে ইমেল করে যে কিভাবে আমেরিকাতে আসবো। You know, most of the thing they do is they come in tourist visa if they don't find any other options. So, and then they overstay, then they become illegal. They overstay their visa. So these are the people that the government was targeting, and they wanted them to come to this special registration where they said, all we're going to do is take down your name and number, and just for our security's sake. So I just wanted to elaborate that for my viewers. So what happens? Like, so you went to special registration thinking nothing bad is going to happen to you.
Right.
Okay.
And it's actually not just your name and number. Special registration means they ask you questions that are very insulting and intrusive. They ask people questions about your religious beliefs, how many times a day you pray, who are your family and friends, your credit card numbers, many things, your political beliefs. And so
who asks you this?
These are people who work for the U.S. immigration
government.
system.
The government, okay.
Right. So because of special registration, so many people went, and 14,000 of them now are facing deportation. Some of them have already been deported. Deportation means basically দেশের থেকে বার করে দেওয়া। একবার ওটা হলে at least 3 বছর, অনেক সময় 10 বছরের মধ্যে আর আসাই যায় না, মানে চেষ্টা করাই যায় না। সো এইসব ফ্যামিলিরা অনেক ফ্যামিলি এফেক্টেড হয়েছে, তার মধ্যে বাংলাদেশি ফ্যামিলিরা অনেক এফেক্টেড হয়েছে। আমরা একটা ফ্যামিলির সাথে কাজ করেছি যেখানে the father went to special registration and his daughter lives in this country because she needs special medical treatment, without which she will not survive. And so if he was sent back to Bangladesh, his wife and children have no way of surviving here because they don't have papers. So if he was deported, it would put his daughter's life at risk. So we were able to organize, we took his case, we actually put pressure on the senators, and we got support from Senator Clinton for his case, and he had a particular legal way to have legal status. So he was saved from deportation, but the fact is the 14,000 other families, that's not their story, and most of them have or are being deported now.
And wow. I mean, when you think of America as a country of freedom and liberty, where you know even Americans themselves were immigrants, and you would expect, like, were you guys surprised, like Arshad, like you being here like all your life, were you surprised by the way the government and the media acted right after 9/11?
Well,
even by your friends, like, you know,
sure.
the reaction that you got. Like, if 9/11 never happened, we wouldn't have known that there was so much racism. I mean, I can't think of any other word that were...
This is a country that has always thought about race and class. I grew up in an all-white community, and so I faced racism on a daily basis growing up. So I wasn't that surprised. Couple that with the fact that we in America don't actually think too much about the rest of the world. And so we don't really understand why anyone might have any issues with American foreign policy. We don't understand why, and many Americans are just angry at the person who looks like a terrorist to them. And most Americans can't tell the difference between a Saudi, an Egyptian, a Bangladeshi, or an Indian. They just simply don't know.
All right, Arshad, thanks. Viewers, once again, you're watching Bideshi. Right, we have to take a short little break, but right after, when we come back, we'll talk to them more about deportation and many other detention and stories that I think you should know. I'm going to go back to our panelists, and Shoshi has a story to share.
Well, after 9/11, after the special registration program, we usually think it's men who are getting deported. It's boys who are getting.
যেমন আমাকে বলেছিল যেহেতু
ছেলেদেরকে register করা হয়েছে, but last year আমরা একটা কেস তার নাম ছিল Tasnuba. She was 16, and we worked on her case, and she was deported, unfortunately. But the whole thing started with racism, and like how people, because she used to wear full hijab, like she used to be covered, whole body.
মানে বোরকা পরে
স্কুলে আসতো, তো হঠাৎ করে ও রিলিজিয়াস লাইনে চলে গেছে, লাইক আগে হয়তো পড়তো না।
তারপর আবার তুমি বলো তো কি হচ্ছে, ও বোরকা পরে স্কুলে আসতো?
হ্যাঁ, মানে প্রথমে ও মানে রেগুলার মানে হিজাব পড়তো, পরে হঠাৎ করে আস্তে আস্তে 9/11 পরে চেঞ্জ হতে শুরু করলো, ইসলামের টুয়ার্ডস যেতে লাগলো, লাইক ও বেশি ইসলামিক বই পড়তো সবসময়, আর হিজাব করতো। তারপর একটা ইসলামিক ক্লাসও রান করতো, মানে অন্য মেয়েদেরকে নিয়ে ওর বয়সী, লাইক ও ইসলামিক শিখাতো, লাইক ইসলাম শিক্ষা যেটাকে বলে, তো সেটা করতো। তো হঠাৎ করে একদিন FBI ওদের বাসায় আসলো, লাইক বললো যে আমরা খবর পাইছি যে তোমাদের মেয়ে, তখন বাসা ছিল না, যে ও হচ্ছে কি টেররিস্টের সাথে লিঙ্ক আছে ওর কোনো, তো আমরা বাসা সার্চ করবো। তখন ওর মা দরজা খুলে দিল। So then they came in and they took her computer and she wrote her diaries, basically her inner thoughts and those things, and they just came and took it with them in their office or whatever. So then they came and then they arrested her. They came back again. They arrested her, saying that we believe that she's linked with the terrorists. She has a plan of bombing New York City. And so basically then she was put into detention center, and she was in Pennsylvania, and which was really like upsetting because she was a 16-year-old girl who's like,
So they just deported a 16-year-old girl
Yeah.
just because
they think
she was following Islam and reading about it. And that's it, right?
And basically in her thing she talked about, like supposedly she talked about suicide and bombing, but any girl, young woman going through identity crisis could say in their diaries that, I want to commit suicide. That's not a sin, it's just her thoughts. It's not like she's doing it, So basically that was held against her, saying that she has a bombing plan and she's linked with the terror, Al-Qaeda and all that. And unfortunately, because she didn't have her paper, she was undocumented, she was deported. And she was 16, she was just going to school here, and she had a younger brother, who was born here. And because she was deported, her parents also had to be deported as well. And
so the whole family was devastated.
And when they went to Bangladesh, while she was in detention center, we worked